For assembling the 4x4x4 LED cube, we are going to be making use of this fixture, which is going to help us to get everything aligned just the way that we need it. We're going to be working to start off in groups of 4 for the LEDs. We will end up needing some of the resistors here as well, that they should be probably in strips like this. They're going to be around 100, 150 ohms, somewhere in there. When you get your 4 LEDs that you're working with, first thing that I'd like you to do with them is to identify the negative leg, which is the shorter of the two. And what we're going to do is just bend them off at a 90-degree angle like that. We're going to do that for all 4. Just make absolutely sure that you're getting the short leg. Okay. If you end up screwing, or screwing that up accidentally, it's going to create headache later. So just, again, make sure that it's the short leg that you are bending off like that. Okay, so now that you have all 4 of those bent, what you can do is take your LED and also your LED or your diagonal cutters, and you're going to basically just take your LED. I'm hanging on to the negative leg here, okay, and we're going to set it right in here, okay. And we're just going to clip this leg off so that it's flush with the end. Okay. All right, so this is the negative leg that we bent, and then this is the positive leg now, which we didn't do anything with except cut it. All right, so we're going to do that for all of them. I'm going to have you then watch me solder together a column. So I have my 4 LEDs, and I already have those trimmed up. Everything's to length. So I'm going to just do this kind of one at a time. So I'm going to pop this one in. And I want to make sure again that it's setting in there nicely. You'll notice that this negative leg, it's resting down in there at an angle. So when I plop this guy in and sitting in there, that's how it's sitting. Okay. And then you can take your next one. I like to hang on to the top one and then just kind of get this pushed in. And then what you can do is take this leg right here and you can bend it to where it needs to go. So while I'm just kind of holding those two, notice what I'm doing. I'm routing it so that the leg comes right up and along the side. It's at a slight angle. And then I just bend it down at a slight angle here so that it meets that point right there. Okay. So holding it down does help. And then once you bend them into spot, when you take your fingers off, they should kind of stay there. But when I solder, I do like to always make sure that I'm putting my finger there just to kind of hold things. And then I can just give it a little solder to hold it together. Okay. Watch me do a couple more here. So I'm going to take my LED, going to hold on to these while I push that into where it needs to be. I'm going to direct this lead so that it's going along this edge right here. And then I'll just give that a little bend. And then I'm going to solder right there. Okay, so I'll get my solder. Just going to hold with one finger there, drop in a little solder. And before you go moving, just make sure that your solder is solidified so it doesn't disconnect. Last one, hold on, push it in, bend this off to the side. Oops. All right, that looks pretty good. Hold and solder. All right, and then you should be able to pop that out. And you can still do a little rearranging if necessary, but I wouldn't go getting carried away with that too much. Just kind of, that looks pretty good though. All right, on to the next step. So when you have all of your columns made, the next step is going to be to make a panel. And this is what I'm calling a panel. Okay. They are all connected up so that all of the negatives are connected horizontally, as you see here. And what you see connected vertically are the positives, right? So if I kind of take a closer look at it, you can actually kind of see. So negatives, and then all of the columns running vertically, as we look at it vertically, would be connected to positive. Here's what we're going to want to do then. I'm going to be sticking these in to the board like this. I'm going to do this one at a time. And then I'm going to very carefully, as I'm kind of holding it here, I'm going to be bending over the negative leg so that it's kind of situated like that. And I'm going to do that for all of them. So you don't need to do it right this second, but I'm just showing you what's going to happen here. These are all going to get ended up bending this way. And then we're going to be soldering them to the next column right there. So if I were to actually kind of draw this, here's my LED. Okay. This is my negative side right here where the leg's coming. This is the positive leg, which is, of course, coming straight up. I'm going to be taking that negative leg, bending it that way. Okay. So then I'll have the next LED is going to be right here. This will be the positive leg. The negative leg, which will get bent over as well, so that it is also going that way. And then I'll be soldering right here. And then when I get the next LED in right here, I'll have a solder right here carrying the negative leg on to the next one. Okay, so keeping in mind what we just said, you can see how my legs currently are, and I'm going to be bending these. So this is my negative leg. I need it to be bent so that it's going this way. I find it's easy enough where if I just grab the LED for the one I'm bending, I just grab it, hold, and then bend it so that I'm doing basically bending it 90 degrees this way. Okay, so this one here, I'm going to hang on to that LED and I'm going to bend this leg over 90 degrees as well. Okay, now you can't be bending these a lot, so once you make your bend, that should be good enough for what we're going to need to do. Okay. And yeah, if they get bent back and forth too many times, they will break. So notice how I have it now. So this is my positive column coming up right here. Okay. And my negative's bent straight over. So then what I'll do is use this board, stick it in. Now you can make sure that when you're working here that these are going straight up and down and that they're in a nice column. Do any, you can make any little adjustments that you need to now, and you will have a little bit of room into the near future here too, but we'll get that in. Okay. Going to need to do the same for all of the columns. So just like this one, I'm going to need to bend all of them approximately 90 degrees. And then what I'll do is I'll stick that in here. Okay. And we'll stop with the two, and we'll start soldering some of these together. All right, I'm going to start right down here at the base. All right, so taking a peek, you can see here's my negative leg. Now they're starting to overlap right here. So you could and cut off a little bit of that. So if you look and see what I just did, I just made it now so that I have a little bit less material that's going to overlap. And I prefer to do it that way. I think it's going to look a little bit cleaner. So I'm going to solder that right there. Now, let's see. Put a little solder, let it solidify. And then we're going to move up to the next one. Make sure that your spacing is accurate now because you're going to be soldering these in. So the distance left to right, if that looks good for you, well, I could solder. I want to first get these positioned so that they're making a nice straight line across. And I think I'll do a solder and then trim. Okay, so I put a little on there. And yeah, if I want, I can trim off just a little bit. You can see this leg. I'm going to trim that a little bit. So you might find that it's a little easier to trim these before you do the soldering, and that's up to you. I'm just going about my business, doing it the way I like. All right, have these overlap a little bit right there. Spacing left to right looks good. I'm going to go ahead and plop some solder on. Okay. Good. Let it solidify, and then I'm going to grab my last one. Okay. See what you got. Ooh, these actually look like they're a little far apart, these two top ones. So I'm going to reheat that one, just draw them a tad closer. Yeah, that looks better. Okay. And grab your next column. Now, here's what I'm going to do. Just you could try this too. See, no, I'm going to clip them right here. So basically on this side of the circle, just to make life a little bit easier for me. Okay, now look. Now when I put my next one in, I'll get about just the right amount of overlap. Okay, so they're overlapping pretty good. And I'll just work my way up. So I'll start at the bottom, throw some solder down, and work my way up, just paying attention to spacing. And finishing with my top one. Good. Okay, so now I have these 3 columns in. I am going to go ahead and trim these. Notice where I'm putting my clippers. I'm going to put it right about at the edge of that LED, that circle there, and I'm just going to clip all of them so that they're approximately that same length. Okay, and I'm going to take my last column and get that in there. And I'm going to do the same thing, and then I'll do my trimming at the end. Okay, so first thing, I'm not trimming anything yet. Okay, so these two are overlapping, and this is where I'm going to end up trimming it. I suppose I could trim it right now, but I do have to still solder it. Good. And again, as you work your way up, just pay attention to make sure that your spacing left to right is looking good. If it is, throw some solder on it. And then you can go ahead and trim off that excess. All right, that should take care of things with this one. Okay, and double check your spacing. Yeah, you can see here, see this one looks like it's a little too far. I'm going to fix that, so I need to bring this back in this way. Let's reheat this right here. Oh, actually, I got to do it here. All right, then I can bring that back over a touch. That spacing looks much better. Except gonna have to move a few of them. But you can, relatively easily make a few little minor adjustments. That looks a little bit better. And then once you are satisfied with how everything is, you can go ahead and pull it out. Okay, we want to now attach resistors to each of the positive columns. So there's different ways you can do it, but this is the way I'm going to do it. First off, I'm going to trim all of these so that they are all of the same length here. I should be able to handle this by eye. So they're pretty close to the same length. And I am also going to use a little bit of tape just to kind of hold this down to the table. Could have used a little bit more tape, that's for sure. Let's just do this. Okay. All right. And so what I want to do is basically solder this resistor in whatever value you're using. That's decided by your teacher, but we're going to go with this value, which is 100. So what I'm going to do is just kind of trim this so that it's about 1/4 of an inch. Okay. And this I want to solder right onto that column. So I'm going to just trim all of these to be the same length right now. Okay. And then I'm going to just go ahead and with a nice clean tip, I'm going to add a little bit of solder onto each one of these resistors. That's going to just help me when I start doing my soldering. Okay, and then grab your resistor and you want to have it, notice this is the bottom where I cut it. I'm going to have where I cut it basically come right up to about there. I need all of these to be the same. So if I just reheat it very briefly, it should do its thing. Hold it there till it solidifies. Now the next one, when I'm putting it on there, I want to make sure that it's at the same distance, not down a little or up a little. I want it right to be about the same. Okay, so get it into position, heat it up real quick. Now, in there you have two other things that have been soldered together. They shouldn't move on you if you did this right. So, but if they do, just, if they pop apart, you're going to need to make it so that they all get soldered together again. There's the second one. Let me add this third one in and move that up a little. Good. And the last one right about there. Move that up a little. Okay. All right. So what you should see here is, these are all in nice line with one another for the most part. And we're going to do that to all of the panels. So go ahead and get resistors soldered to the panels. Don't do anything with those leads. Just leave them as is. Once you get all of these soldered onto all 4 panels, we'll be in position to start our next step. Last thing we're going to do with the panel then is we're going to be cutting these to a certain length. If you look at this one's already been cut. So basically, we're going to cut this one if you consider this one full length, we're going to take about 1/4 inch off of it, and then we're going to do another 1/4 inch and then another 1/4 inch. So you can pretty much eye this up. So this one will leave full length, then we'll just take off about 1/4. Now here we're taking about half of that leg, and here we're going to take off about 3/4 of that leg. Okay. So full length, we took off 1/4. Here we took off about 1/2, and then here we took off about 3/4. So we get, and it doesn't have to be precise. We just have this kind of angle. This is going to help us later. So you should have something that looks like this. You'll do it to all 4 panels when you're done, so that you'll have a total of 4 of these.